what day is it? Well, happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. I was on Instagram stories, and if you're not connected with me over there, it's Jenna Pacelli on Instagram stories. And I was talking about, because earlier in the week I posted this picture with my hair all crazy, having woken up out in the field as I work in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere, as a wilderness therapist. And so the picture was pretty funny because my hair was everywhere. And I put, I woke up like this because I literally did. And then I was noticing that my hair was all over the place again this morning. And so it brought me to start to think about how I like my hair that way. Actually, I like it to be a little unkempt. I don't like things a little too perfect. I like things a little more gritty, a little more interesting. In my opinion, this is what I think of as interesting. And that made me think of how we are always pressured to conform to the world, to conform to our family system and their expectations for us, to conform to what society expects of us, maybe even subgroups or subcultures of people. So how we are expected to conform, and there's a lot of pressure to do that. So how do we avoid that? How do we show up authentically as ourselves in a world that wants us to conform, right? So how do we show up in a world that wants us to conform in an authentic way? And so if you are joining us, if you're joining us live, maybe drop a 1. If you're watching the recording, drop a 2, and let me know where you're watching from. And if you have any struggles with this, like what comes up for you when you feel this desire to conform to what the world wants for you, right? And how that might not always be in alignment for what we want for ourselves. So how do we do that? So again, I was going back to this story of having messy hair and liking my hair kind of messy, and how that didn't jive with the place that I grew up in, the family I grew up in, the schools I went to. It wasn't really something that, it's such a small example, but it was a big example in the sense that there were a lot of things that I started to push up against as I hit my 20s, mid-20s, late 20s, and the ways in which I decided to kind of sail my own ship in my life. And so some thoughts for you is that, number one, it's hard to stand firm in these ways, right? It is to find alignment and true independence comes from not just reacting to the values of others, but by doing something different just because it's different. So independence does not mean doing the opposite of what somebody else is doing. That's actually just rebellion. And it's not true independence. It's not true authenticity. This is something that I say to the adolescent girls that I work with in wilderness therapy. Like, actually, I know you're wanting to rebel, and that's really normal in our teenage experience or at some point in our life. And what I'm hoping for you is that we can help you connect to your more authentic truth inside of yourself. And that might look like similar to what your parents do or did. It might look very different. And so being brave enough to be ourselves can be really hard. Yeah. So when we are trying to connect into who we really are, it can be really challenging because people will start to feel uncomfortable with that. When we start to change and start to fit out, as one of my mentors encouraged me to do, don't be afraid to fit out rather than fit in. And when you become a leader, you start to fit out. So don't be afraid of that. And that's part of being a leader. So again, if you're watching live, drop a 1. If you're watching the recording, drop a 2. Let me know where you're coming from. And then, so again, this true independence and freedom comes from knowing who you are and what you like or don't like, what your passions are, knowing that you are enough. And it's not just an intellectual knowing. It's not just something that you can read in a book, and actually me explaining it to you is not going to be enough. You have to go back out and experience it for yourself. before it's really going to make sense. And you're going to have to know what it feels like to really notice the pressures of society and people that want you to be like them at your own expense, and experience what it feels like to push out against that so you can still make space for yourself, right? So often people want us to conform because it's more comfortable for them, rather than allowing us to be who we are. And this is ultimately is abandonment. They're abandoning our ability. They are forcing us or pressuring us to abandon our own authenticity and our own inner knowing, right? When they are wanting us to be like them because they can't handle difference. And we all do this. It's not just like we're all being forced to be a certain way, and we don't do the same to others. We do. We all want people around us that are like us. So we have to also be aware of how we may force ourselves onto others, philosophically, emotionally, mentally, in our values and our beliefs, wanting people to be like us. And it's not an easy task to notice that. But so it's noticing the times and the situations where you felt inadequate and working through it as well. So when you're noticing that pressure's coming in, being able to work on staying true to yourself. Okay. So it's not just a head knowing, it's an experiential experience, really. So we choose at a very young age to accept or reject the values of our parents and our culture around us. And much of it's unconscious, but some of it's a choice. So I know for me, and what I was saying in my video on my Instagram stories earlier today, is I've always felt very different. I knew from a young age that it felt very strange to me to have been born into this body at this time, in this place, of this family. And I knew I could have been in another body, in another part of the world, maybe not even a human body, and having a completely different experience. And so from a very young age, and it wasn't a conscious thing, it was a very visceral feeling of, this is really interesting. How did I get here? Maybe around age 4 or 5. And I remember having that kind of feeling and that sense consistently that this is a strange reincarnation, really, is I think the knowing that I had, right? So as I grew up, I started to push back against some of these values that had been indoctrinated into me, and I didn't really choose. I chose to reject some of these values from a very young age and just didn't know it, and then at the same time had incorporated a lot of them without awareness of it. And so I had to really sort through what was me and what was not me. And I really encourage you to do this. This is the deep inner work of knowing yourself, right? So hi, if you are joining live, drop a 1. If you're joining on the recording, drop a 2, and let me know what it is that you're wanting to work on, or what's hard about this for you in terms of finding your voice in a world that it's challenging sometimes, right? So my choices in food changed, my spirituality, my clothes, my belief systems, and it was very challenging for those around me to accept that. And I got a lot of pushback, and it was really painful. And I stuck to it because it felt right for me. It felt authentic and felt more like me. I was figuring out what was important to me, what was valuable to me, and that directly challenged the things that I'd been taught. And so my invitation to you is to notice when that's happening. Are you showing up in a way that's really authentically you? And how do you know that? Right? You're going to feel it in your body when something feels true. And even like the feelings of another person or the authenticity of another person, you can feel it in your body when you can feel your own authenticity. So, yes, exactly. So Yeah, I'm having comments come in. So it's hard to embrace yourself because you have to identify what's really you and not what people tell you what is you, right? So this idea that people know you, or that people can tell you, yeah, it feels amazing to learn who you really are. And this takes work, it takes time, it takes silence. And I was yesterday on my Facebook Live, over on my business Facebook Live, I talked about this book called Knight in Rusty Armor. Amazing, so simple. And it's this process of him coming to learn himself and understand himself. So in a minute, I'm gonna pop off and pop back on, actually, to do a separate video on essential oils that help us lock into that authenticity. Okay, because the oils, not only do they impact us at a very deep level physiologically, but they have a massive impact on our emotional and mental well-being and our spiritual well-being. So that's going to be a separate video. I'd like to keep these a little shorter. So a quote that I'll leave you with is, an unhealed person can find offense in pretty much anything someone does. And a healed person understands that the actions of others have absolutely nothing to do with them, right? So as you shift into alignment with yourself, you are going to get pushback, and you have to remember that that's about them. Now, of course, we want to be intentional and thoughtful and empathic as we move towards more authenticity, because it is going to be challenging for people. And at the same time, remembering that that's about them. They want you to be like them so they can feel comfortable. Yeah? So embrace who you are. The world needs you exactly as you are. It doesn't need you in some version that's not you, right? It needs you to show up for yourself. The more people that really show up, and there's another quote that I can't think of the whole thing, but we need more people that come alive, right? The world doesn't need more conformity. The world needs more alive people. So my invitation, again, is for you to come through, give yourself, honor yourself enough to do this work. And there's a lot of ways to do this. This is why what I love is helping people find freedom. And this means so many things, right? So that's the invitation. And there's invitation to find deeper freedom, and that really to me means alignment and authenticity. So allowing yourself the gift of doing that work, finding out who you really are, and honoring that in your day-to-day actions, your day-to-day life. So even if it's like me and you like your hair messy, such a small thing, but it's a big thing because I'm honoring myself. And yeah, sometimes I like to do my hair and wear more makeup, and and again, these are superficial examples, but to me, like those have been things I've gotten pushback on and been criticized about. Yeah, and so what is it? What feels good for you? I don't like everything to be perfect. I like our humanness. I like our grittiness, our imperfection, our shadow. And I think that's why I love wilderness therapy. And I love this work, and I love the essential oils because they bring all these things together and bring light onto all of who we are. Okay, so I hope that helps you. I'm going to hop off and then hop back on, and I'm going to talk about essential oils for authenticity to help us lock into that place and come from that place. Okay, Natalie S. Johnson, mwah. Sending you love. She's been over there commenting. Yeah, your comments are helpful, you guys. Then I know how to help you. I can guess and I can chat with you, but the more you engage, the more I know how to help you. So love all your comments. Let me know. Share this with somebody. If somebody's really finding this challenging, share this. Yeah, my hope is to be of service. Okay, I'll see you in 30 seconds. Bye.